Ward Manuel sharing some updates, kind of a Q&A with fans online this week. Nothing groundbreaking, although he shares that the sports that will receive revenue sharing now that that's implemented are football and basketball. Some funding for volleyball and ice hockey. No mention of baseball or any of the other non-revenue programs there. He says, of course, states the obvious that football leads our revenue generation, carries a large portion of the weight for the financial health of the department. And it mentions this. I know people have asked about this throughout time, but they remain committed to keeping all 29 sports they have in place. So whether they add advertising, whether they don't, whether they explore more of these concerts in different ways they can add revenue, that's all going to be determined. But I think at the end of the day, Michigan's always going to use the maximum amount that they can on revenue sharing and probably still be able to keep, as many sports as anybody because of just what this department is, how much they bring in through having the big house and everything else.
And I understand not wanting gaudy advertising all over the big house, right? But I think if you get one or two sponsors and, not putting Meyer on the uniform or something like that, but if you get one or two sponsors that you can put on the big board, it's even temporary when you're flashing it up or leaving it up on the big board during games and stuff like that and get millions of dollars for it, then you do it, right? Everything's changed. There is no traditionalist anymore, if we're being honest, right? Kids are getting paid to play. NIL has changed the game. And no matter what the NCAA says about, over $600, you have to clear it through a clearinghouse or something. I don't think anybody expects that to stand, right? You can't put the genie back in the bottle now that kids are making their money. And so to me, that's going to be the next logical step. And I think, as long as you put it on the scoreboards, maybe put Absolpure on the, on the goalpost pad or something like that, or whatever. It's not going to bug me as long as it's not gaudy, as long as it's not on the field. And I know there will be some pushback from that. But I'm an older guy too. So, I was one of those guys that said, don't you ever put anything on my beautiful big house lawn, so we'll see. And, but it's coming, guys. I really believe that. So I think you're going to see $4 million. In fact, I know you're going to see $4 million of the revenue sharing go to basketball, the vast majority going to football, and then the rest going to the sports that Clay mentioned.
Yeah, I do think that we do need to start wrapping our heads around the fact that there might be some sort of small sponsor on the field at some point. There might be some kind of, people freaked out when, again, not going to making comments on the brand one way or another, but I think DTE had some signage up for the spring game, which is pretty normal. That's happened at least the last few years. People weren't very happy about that, but I think that might become a little more prevalent moving forward. And it seems like with stuff like this, and certainly I hope they never touch the uniforms. I hope there's not some kind of decal on the helmet. But it does seem like once the initial outcry around that sort of goes away, like at least, the Red Wings put a patch on their jersey. The Tigers have, I think, a Meyer patch on their jersey or something. As long as you said, Chris, like it's not gaudy, I think a lot of people sort of just forget about it and just kind of becomes what it is at a certain point. I hope it doesn't happen, but I do think that whenever some sort of change happens, there's going to be some outcry. There are going to be a lot of people that are pissed off, but then they'll start playing the games and then that'll be the end of it. So we'll see what happens there. Hopefully, that uniform to me is as pristine and as clean looking as any in college sports, maybe in all of sports, honestly. I hope they don't touch it. I think at some point it's probably going to happen though.
I do think the Wolverine field at Michigan Stadium has a nice ring to it, and you wouldn't have to change the logo at midfield all that much if we're being honest. So yeah. I'm not saying it's happening. I'm just saying, you never know.
There might be a lot of people that fight that from happening though.
Well, they can, kiss my butt.
All I'll say is there are some preliminary conversations. There's an exploration process, just to use these words that these executives use to kind of keep everything vague and whatever. Right. But there are some talks, and just Wolverine.com could be on the field. Could be the Wolverine Court. We would name it after Beeline, but
John and Kathleen Beeline Court at sponsored by the Wolverine.com at Chrysler Center. Has a nice ring to it.
The Wolverine.com arena. Yeah.
Yeah.
But and And Ward Manuel made it very clear too in this Q&A, just to close it out, that NIL collectives are still going to be very important. And there was a list someone, fan asked, or maybe multiple, and they consolidated it into one question: how can I support these efforts? Of course, maybe they added that question in themselves to kind of nudge fans. Hey, this is how you can support. There were like 4 or 5 bullet points. One of them was contribute to the Champion Circle Collective, which I think is still going to be a major, major part in the success of these programs. And you're already seeing that as soon as a guy commits. Michigan's really hot on the recruiting trail right now in football. As soon as a guy commits, the Champion Circle has a graphic ready and a tweet, and they're like, yes, sir. They were a part of all this too. So whether or not the clearinghouse stands, either way, it's going to be a big piece of this. So NIL still remaining. And as Bruce Motti said at the panel discussion the other day, anyone who says they know how this is going to go is lying. And I think that's facts.